Hi, my name is Max Hutcheson. I'm a real estate agent at the Wells Group. Today I'm here to talk to you about what has changed in the landscape of buying and selling properties with the recent COVID-19 outbreak. So first I wanted to rewind a little bit and sort of touch on how 2019 was. So 2019 finished out pretty well. It's a very strong year. Sales were similar to 2018 levels. So we entered 2020 with coming off a good year in 2019. The first quarter of the year was actually really strong in La Plata County. Residential sales were up significantly from the first quarter of last year, and in fact, they were as high as numbers, higher than any number since before 2011 even. So we were starting out really strong. Obviously, some of the things that helped that were the interest rates were low, which part of that I think was primarily driven by the fact that the Fed saw that this COVID thing was likely coming, and so they wanted to encourage the real estate market to stay strong. And so interest rates were remarkably low. They started out at the beginning of the year in the high threes, 3.75, and then they through January and February they dropped down into the 3.5. Even towards the end of February, they were in the low threes. And throughout March, they were very low, so there was a huge boom in refinances, a lot of new purchases. Everybody was trying to take advantage of these great rates. Towards the end of March, oddly, the rates started to go back up again, which was surprising, I think, to a lot of people. Primary reason for that is from talking to a lot of lenders, is they became overwhelmed. While the Fed wasn't increasing rates or anything like that, basically the mortgage companies themselves and loan originators were increasing rates just because of high demand, and they were not able to keep up with all these refinances and new purchases. So since then, at the end of March, they were about 3.5 was the interest rate. In the last 2 weeks, they've dropped back down to like the low threes, and so while that would normally help the market, in this time we're running into some serious challenges with the real estate market, at least in Colorado. Primarily what's happened this week that's been the most significant is, while real estate has been deemed essential, they've really narrowed down on what tasks they consider essential. And so essentially what it's come down to after this week of going through a lot of back and forth between the Attorney General and then CAR, which is the Colorado Association of Realtors, is that if there's a contract in place, a buyer has a contract on a property with the seller, then you can use the normal means of, you can do an inspection. The buyers are allowed to do a final walkthrough. The closing companies are still open. Title companies are still open. Lenders are still allowed to operate, so you have money that's available to fund the loan. The biggest challenge, I think, for our market moving forward is that they've put a ban on all new showings and open houses and effectively marketing activities, so listing appointments, photography, the general stuff that we would do to get a property ready for sale, listed for sale. And then, not being able to show buyers properties is going to create a challenge in person. So you can still do virtual showings, virtual tours, stuff like that. But for the most part, a buyer is going to have a contract on a property with a seller to be able to inspect the home and view the home in person. And so that's going to create a challenge, obviously, as most buyers are going to want to get into a house to really look at it to see if they want to make an offer on it. The other thing is, I think we're going to see a pretty big shortage of inventory right now, as this is going to prevent most sellers from being able to list their home if you hadn't gotten the photos done prior to this most recent update. And, candidly, even before this, most sellers were, unless you had to list your property, were holding their house off the market because, like everyone, they possibly didn't want strangers, people in their home, or any situation, in which they could get sick or get somebody sick. So, we have an interesting situation going on, and I think one of the questions we get the most is, what is going to happen to our property values? And it's an interesting question, and my gut is that right now, I don't think that property values are going to be negatively affected. Reason is if you look back at the Great Recession 10 years ago, the dynamics were a lot different. You had a mortgage crisis, you had a lot of inventory, and then we had a recession, and it pulled a lot of the buyers out of the market. So you had a lot of inventory, which then creates values to come down as the folks that have to sell are going to be more aggressive with their price. In this situation, I don't know that we necessarily have the same loss of demand. I feel like prior to this whole shutdown, there was a significant amount of demand from buyers, and that's nationwide, not just in La Plata County. And so we had a good supply of buyers. This time of year, we would typically be adding 30 to 40% more inventory in terms of homes and townhomes and land for sale. And so I feel like we would have had a great blend of, strong buyer demand, strong listings. But now we don't have either. So we're not having people bring their properties to market, and we're also not having buyers able to look at properties to view them or purchase them. And so long term, I think that if this doesn't stretch out very significantly, in the sense that we're not looking, this isn't going to go beyond, hopefully May, then I think that when it comes back, when things start to open up again, we will still have strong buyer demand. We'll have a lot of sellers that have been anxious to get their property listed, and they will then list their home. Buyers can view the home, then we can write contracts again and close properties. If this drags on beyond May and the deeper economic impacts are more significant, job losses, loss of savings, people are, credit scores have dropped because they haven't been making payments on credit cards and loans. Obviously, this could get a lot more complicated, and the more deep drivers for the economics of people who are wanting to buy property and people who are wanting to sell them could significantly change. So hopefully that won't happen. But at this point, we're hopeful that, on April 26th, the current ban in Colorado for stay-at-home and would effectively be lifted at some level, and we could begin to show property again starting in late April and early May, which will help keep the real estate market on track, and we anticipate strong demand at that point. But we will keep you guys posted. We will keep these videos coming, and any new updates we have for you, we will definitely share from you. So again, thanks for watching, and if we can do anything to help, please let us know.